We can't hear you, Sunitha.
How about you, Suvarna? Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you, but I couldn't hear when you were chanting.
Oh, okay.
I think you have to come forward a little bit and speak into the...
Yeah. Now it's better.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure,
yes.
sure.
Okay. Om. 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So since we're starting a new chapter today with the 12th chapter, I thought we can do the entire Gita Dhyanam. And I guess I would ask all of you to participate here. I'll just start with the first shloka, and then if everyone can do one slide at a time. In some of them we have two. Okay. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusantatami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini.
Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Fullara Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha.
1 second. I think I took the wrong. Yeah, I have to do this presentation. I did have the right one. Sorry. Yeah, please.
स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतुहे नमः।
सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गोप गीतामृतं महत्।
वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्।
भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी श्रोतीर्न खलु पाण्डवैरणनिधि कैवर्तक केशवः।
त्वं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्।
यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगा ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वं सर्वपापेभ्यः मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः।
Thank you, everyone. Now we go to the other one. Others, otherwise it's causing some issues. You're able to see, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so we are moving into the last chapter of the second part of Bhagavad Gita. And just a short recap on this, of what we have done so far. You know, the first chapter was, of course, addressing the confusion of Arjuna, right? Which was, if you look at it from where we are so far, where we have done almost up to 11th chapters, I guess one could say that this confusion of Arjuna came about because, you know, he really did not understand his true nature, right? So it was actually arising out of his own kind of lack of his own identity. And because he really did not know what his identity is, and he really forgot what is his right duty as a warrior prince. So we had from chapter 1, which addressed the confusion of Arjuna, we moved on to chapter 2 to 5, which really explained about that Tvam principle, you know, as we said, the Tattvamasi. So the Tvam principle, which addresses the true identity of the individual. And once the true identity is explained, Krishna then tells him really what is his duty. And this is where this whole aspect of Karma Yoga really came in. And interestingly, when we start off today, you will see how Karma Yoga is actually roped into Bhakti Yoga itself. So then chapter 2 to 5, where this identity of Arjuna was explained and what his true duty is and how he should be doing his duty as a prince, how he should give up his fruits of action, all that stuff. We then moved on to chapter 6, where we were reminded that having known that this is your identity, how do I practice that? How do I constantly keep reminding myself of it? Is when this whole practice of meditation was introduced. So we went through the Dhyana Yoga, or the yoga of meditation. Then chapter 7 through 10 gave us really the Tat principle, the Tattvamasi, the Tat aspect of it, which gave an elaborate description of Ishvara. And if we were to recognize that Ishvara was really or is one individual who is much more powerful than us and who is residing way, way above us and everything, we came to chapter 11, where that Ekarupa Ishvara was shown in Vishwarupa Ishvara. You know, that Ishvara itself, or himself, or herself, however we want to look at it, is now manifested in different forms and names in this huge cosmic universe that we are living in. So it culminated with really the vision of the cosmic form in the 11th chapter. So from that 7th to 11th was basically the Tat part of it. And this Tat principle, how do we, just like how, you know, from chapter 1 to 6, 6 was a chapter where, which was a meditation chapter to remind us of our true identity. Now we are coming into chapter 12, which is the Bhakti Yoga, which introduces for us of having, you know, having given this entire gamut of forms of what Vishwarupa is about, what is Anekarupa, is now to really introduce us to the sadhana of devotion, which will allow us to recognize that Ishvara. So we've now really come to the last chapter of this portion, where there is this most enlightening discussion, I would say, or the best means to realize that Lord in the higher form. So in chapter 7, we were kind of introduced to the two forms of Ishvara, the Parabhakti and Aparabhakti, right? And Apara Bhakti is what, where we were introduced to the various forms in the 10th chapter. And then again in the 11th chapter, you see both the Parabhakti and Apara Bhakti being explained. So in some sense, it is, the Saguna form of the Lord, which are shown in various forms, but also the Nirguna form. Arjuna in 2 or 3 shlokas, he talks about the Avyayam, in the imperishable, the Avyaktam, all that aspect. So Arjuna is now understanding that the Tat form of the Lord can be both in the Nirguna and the Saguna. So naturally for him, the question comes is, okay, now that you've explained both the Saguna and the Nirguna form, tell me which particular road, which should I take? You come to this fork, you try to understand which of the paths do you really take. So from chapter 7 through 10, where there were this upasana of Nirguna form, which was given, but the Saguna form was also given so many different times, and therefore that is where, you see the last shloka, which culminates in this Mat Karma Krit, Mat Paramaha, Mat Bhaktaha, Sangha Varjitaha, Nirvairaha Sarva Bhuteshu, Yas Samameti Pandava. So here, actually, I'm sure this can be interpreted in both Saguna form, Saguna way, and the Nirguna. But in reality, if you look at where is Krishna really leading us, Krishna is really leading us ultimately to that Advaitam, where, he's trying to say that, whoever does his actions for me, who takes me as the supreme, who is devoted to me, free from attachment, who bears, such a person attains me. So you see that attains me is the key word there, which is really taking you to that aspect of Advaitam. And so now you see chapter 12 with this Bhakti Yoga making us get into that state where we can truly calm down, we can understand by the meditation on the Saguna forms. Slowly he's taking us to understanding the Nirguna part itself. So I thought so far, I mean, if anyone has anything to say with regard to how the last 4 chapters was leading on, we can discuss that right now before we go into the aspects of Bhakti Yoga, which we touched upon last time, but we'll just have a short recap of whatever we discussed for the 11th chapter with this Mat Karma Krit, Mat, Mat Bhava, everything. Anything? Anant, you have anything to say, or Usha?
Hariom, yeah, just one observation is, like in the Vishwarup Sandarsana Yoga, he shows everything, in the cosmic form, everything one can possibly imagine or beyond the imagination. And then at the end, Bhagavan says, you've seen all this, but again, there's only one way to reach me, which is bhakti. So, Bhagavan also gives the solution, or how to reach him, because by looking at the whole cosmic form, and then, like Arjuna is, I think, what's going on, and where am I, and what kind of form is this I'm looking. It's like as if he lost everything, like, direction, there's no direction, or he says, so with all that, again Bhagavan assures Arjuna and assures us that bhakti is the way to reach him.
Right. I mean, if you look at it from a very practical standpoint also, the problem for all of us in living in today's world is it starts with dealing with everything outside, right? We have problem with people, we have problem with our situation, we have problem with our weather, we have problem with our status, so many different things. Those are the kind of problems we are facing. So this Vishwarupa Darshanam, in many ways, is introducing us to the fact that, everything outside us is also Ishvara. Everything within me is also Ishvara. Everything is Ishvara. So I need to start accepting everyone as part of myself. So that also can be looked as when you're explaining Vishwarupa, I was thinking about that aspect also, why this Vishwarupa Darshanam is very important for us. So far up to 10th chapter, it was all about that, I am in them. Correct? I am in them. So I'm in each one. And so he gives us so many varieties of forms and everything that we can pray to. But then 11 chapters, everything is in me. That Vishwarupa Darshan, when Arjuna keeps asking the question, and even Sanjay is describing about the form of Krishna, with the various, so many different so many hands, legs, stomachs, all that, everything he says is in me only, that is me. So that I thought was 11th chapter really brings out that aspect of it. Anything else?
Hari Om.
Yes, Meena.
Okay, so in this, I mean, of course, the whole chapter, a whole 55 verses are good, but the from 5 to 8, where Lord Krishna says about the entire creation is mine. So those four slokas are very, very, very powerful and good. And when he says, oh, Gudakesha, everything, all the moving, the unmoving stuff, the Marutis, the Ashwini, everything is just me. And
Right.
I mean, with your naked eyes, you cannot see, but I give you your the divine eyes for you, and by which you may be able to see my supreme yajna power and whole glory.
Right.
So those, I mean, those are really, really touching. Those 5 slokas of where Radha Krishna says the entire creation is mine, and he says in those 5 slokas. Just very good.
Yeah, and this past week I was really trying to analyze the whole 11th chapter, and I found that the theme what you just mentioned from shlokas 5 to 13, they actually repeat at least 3 or 4 times throughout the entire chapter. First, you have Krishna explaining about his form, because Arjuna is asking him, tell me really what is your true form. So when Krishna explains to him, and then he finds that Arjuna is not able to get it. That's when he gives him the Divya Chakshu, right? And once he gives him the Divya Chakshu, and because Sanjaya also has that ability to have that same Divya Chakshu and to know what Krishna is projecting.
So he is blessed. See how blessed he is. Sanjaya.
Correct. Exactly. I know.
He's just a messenger, but how much of grace he has to see the actual Vishwarupa of Lord Krishna. So that is really, he's truly blessed.
And then when he explains everything to Dhritarashtra, who is, of course, blind to all this, right? I mean, not just physically blind, but mentally
Yes.
so much attached to his children that he's unable to even see or appreciate what Sanjay is saying.
Mhm.
After that, then Arjuna is coming back. So then you have, Sanjay talking from almost 9 to 14, he's explaining that. Then Arjuna is coming back, and now because of the Divya Chakshu, he is like totally, completely, in a totally different state. And then he's explaining the entire vision of what he's seeing all the way up to, 24, 27, maybe that's quite a bit, actually, all the way up to 31. And then when after seeing everything, Arjuna is like, okay, why are you doing this? Tell me this. That's when you see again, Krishna explaining about the effect of time. He says at the end of the day, time is, I want to really show how everything is residing in time. Yeah. Usha, you wanted to say something?
No, I'm just saying, yeah, when you said time, I was thinking the shloka kalosmi. Okay.
Correct, exactly. Kalosmi
Look in.
lokakshara. Yes. So beautiful. I mean, until then, even I was pondering upon, even when we were doing the shlokas, I never had the time to, I won't say I didn't have the time, but I didn't think about it so much. But this shloka really tells you the role that time plays in our lives. And he's showing that, how he is that time, which, so he is that destruction part of it also, and showing that, in time, everything is happening. And after that, the shlokas, then Sanjaya is then, just of course, there's only one shloka on that. But then you have Arjuna again, talking about now he is there's a certain amount of it's very reflective actually, that shloka is all the way from 36, where he's explaining everything, and ultimately he's able to understand the saguna aspects of Ishvara, and there is also the nirguna aspects, where he where is that as shloka Aprameyam Dasilokasya. There's a couple of places where you see Arjuna understanding both the Saguna aspect and the Nirguna aspects.
Is it the 38th one? Tvamadi Deva Purusha Purana. Tvamasya Vishwa Param Nidhanam.
Not really. Of the Vishwa Mananta Rupam, no, there was Aprameyam. I should have marked on my book. But in any case, the point I was trying to come is what you had mentioned, Meena, which is that glory of Vishwarupa is brought again and again and again as a reminder for us throughout the entire 11th chapter that Ishvara is everywhere. Ishvara, again, not to judge other religions or any of those other more popular religions or whatever, but the point about it is that in our Vedanta, God is not somewhere else. Of course, God is shown as the most powerful aspect of all of us, but God is everywhere. God is here, God is in me. I am part of God.
Within
I
us.
am, we go even as bold enough to say that I am God, So that whole aspect is, I thought, in 11 chapters brought out so well. But ultimately, the point coming to 12th chapter is essentially that extension of the thought flow about, okay, now I understand Vishwarupa, but then how do I accept Vishwarupa? how do I start to develop a sense of acceptance, a sense of surrender, a sense of belonging. Even, this is a very important word that I'm using, belonging, because again, the reason why we feel insecure is because we feel that, we are left alone. There is nobody to take care of me. All these aspects of it can be solved if I truly understand my relationship with the world, and that relationship can be strengthened if I develop the aspect of bhakti yoga. So bhakti yoga, as many of, sometimes we, or again, I was reading somewhere else about how when a child comes into the world, for a Hindu child, the few things that we have to immediately teach our children is this aspect of, what is rebirth, what is moksha, what is karma, what is bhakti in its true essence. Otherwise, we all have this notion of bhakti yoga is, I go to the temple, I just pray to the Lord, and the Lord is going to take care of me. That's it, when I have any issues. But I don't understand what my relation with the Lord is, and how does the Lord really want me to work in the world? How can He bring me closer to Him? All these aspects we really don't get into. So this is why this aspect of bhakti yoga is really important to understand, that it is not a particular sadhana, but it is actually a number of different sadhanas, but it culminates completely in this bhakti yoga. So, and if you think about it, bhakti yoga can be actually looked into 3 different levels, you know. So, one, starting with karma yoga, then you have what we call as this upasana yoga, and then jnana yoga. So, all these are levels culminating into bhakti yoga. So we never really say, I know we do say karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and jnana yoga, but it's much better to differentiate this into karma yoga part of it, and then leading up to upasana yoga, then jnana yoga, and ultimately it will allow us to really understand what bhakti yoga means. So in karma yoga also, when we look at what exactly is karma yoga, we can kind of break it down into sort of 2 levels. One is where Krishna totally understands, I mean, he of course recognizes that we all are not made the same, or we also have stages of evolution within us, or stages of growth. So the first one, of course, is, where he's saying, it is, you've come into this world. There is, of course, a reason why you've come into this world, because you have come to this world to fulfill your own desires. The only thing that I'm asking you to do is, why don't you fulfill those desires by legitimate means? Do the right things, do the things with the right kind of values, honesty, integrity, satyam, all that. So that is the first level, where he's saying, I will give whatever you want, but just do that. The second aspect is, once I understand that aspect of it, it says, look at it in such a way that any action that I'm doing, whether it is, you're buying a house, you're buying a car, you're buying a new dress, anything you want, before you even start to enjoy them, whether it is the food that you're putting into your mouth, the first morsel, or, anything like, we all have this tradition, like even when you buy a new dress, right? It's not as if I just bring it home and I just wear it, right? I mean, I still remember when we were young, I mean, you always put a little bit of uh, manjal, right? You put a little bit of manjal, you offer it to God, and then you wear it, right? So this was like very simple practices we had, but over time, we kind of got out of it, mainly because we really didn't understand what it was. But the idea was, everything, let it be a prasad, it was an Ishvara prasadam. So even when you buy a new house, the way we go through so much amount of rituals, all this. So Krishna is just giving that one request. whatever you want, I can do it, but just, dedicate it back to me. Not that I need it, but mainly it allows one to get out of the ego part of it, the ahankara and the mamakara, that part of it. So karma yoga is basically just bringing about an attitudinal change within us. So as this mind becomes more and more then clearer, because the more and more I'm giving out and not doing it for myself, my mind becomes more clearer. My mind gets rid of a lot of the garbage which unnecessarily we bring into our minds because of, the minute I wear a new dress, or nowadays with the social media, where I'm expecting a lot of likes, where I put the photo on the social media and then I'm expecting some likes or whatever, or my mind just goes into it. So all that for what reason, right? So karma yoga really brings that attitudinal change. And once that attitudinal change happens, the mind becomes purer and purer, then I begin to question, why am I doing all this? Can I now dedicate my life for something else instead of my own personal benefit here? Should I not be doing something more for the sake of the world? So this kind of questions gradually comes, which is an indication really, the more and more, I mean, so we all think about this, am I, what is my sadhana? Why am I doing this? Or am I really, because I'm looking at Suvarna here because, we always question ourselves, am I really improving? Am I really growing? So the way we can actually measure is how often does the thought come to my mind as to when I'm thinking about somebody else. The very fact that I start to think more and more about somebody else, doing something for somebody, this one. So that itself sort of indicates this change in attitudinal thing. So in a sense, our level of purity is directly proportional to how much am I giving more than what I'm taking. So, we have this Vedic mantra, na karmana, na prajaya, dhani, na tyagi, na ki, amritatva manashuhu. So that itself shows the difference between our own kind of materialistic and spiritual approach here. So success now, or success in our in our sadhana, is really how much am I starting to think more and more. So this is actually, the second level of karma yoga, where slowly my own desires are becoming lower and I start to think again for other people. So in the first level, I was selfish, but in the second level, my selfishness is coming down and I'm actually growing from a very narrow mind to helping out more and more others. So this parupakarya punyaya papaya parapidanam, part of it, where I'm going to think about the paropakaram. So, thinking more and more of others. And this brings us slowly this attitudinal change. And from here, we move on to this upasana yoga, which means actually which most people would look at it as bhakti yoga. But this is the part where I start to look at who is this God, that God in the form of Saguna, Ishwar Dhyanam. And this is very important for us because it starts to now focusing of the mind. So far, my mind was always outward. A lot of people ask this question, which is, if there are so many people in the world who are always doing social service, right? Isn't that enough? Aren't they also equally, equally mature enough? But the point about it is that we have to be sort of so careful and alert in our own sadhana when I'm doing things on the outside, when I'm doing things for social service. Things we can easily be pulled down, even when I'm doing social service, by this fact that when somebody starts to praise us, when I'm doing a social service, saying that, you're doing such a great work or whatever, that can pull us down. And to prevent that aspect of being pulled down, we need something like this upasana yoga, where I'm now focusing upon that aspect of Ishvara in my own mind, and I'm doing my own dhyanam on that beautiful Lord who is residing in my own heart. And that is the Upasana Yoga. And this Upasana Yoga, when I do more and more, then I start to question about who is that Lord. And that is where this Jnana Yoga aspect of it comes in, where I ultimately recognize that that Lord who I have always been praising or doing my sadhana on a particular form, whether it's Ekarupa or Vishwarupa, there is somebody who is actually formless. So that aspect of getting up to the formless aspect comes only when I start to inquire and I study, and that aspect is, is the thing about Jnana Yoga. So Jnana Yoga takes me to understand both forms of the Lord, the Parabhakti, Aparabhakti, like he said, the Saguna aspects and the Nirguna aspects. So this aspect is the ultimate form of Bhakti Yoga that we are going into. And that is why the shloka, where the constituents of Bhakti is given here, where I explained here the Karma Yoga, which is, of course, the two parts, but then it leads to dedicating the activities. And then from the Upasana Yoga, where keeping the goal of life as the Lord Himself and holding the attitude of being a devotee. And this allows me to slowly start being free of all attachments, whether they are physical, mental, and intellectual. And again, that leads to ultimately, accepting everyone as no different than myself. So such a person is a qualified bhakta and is eligible for the path of Bhakti Yoga. Any thoughts or comments that anyone wants to share?
Hari Om, you summarized it very well. Thank you. The connection between the previous chapter and where we are going next, and how the Lord is leading us from one chapter, one concept to the other concept, and explaining. Your summarization was very good. Thank you so much. It clarified a lot of my doubts. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does Amma have anything to say, Yogi Amma?
Hari Om. So the bhakti level, the order is like this, right? First is Sarva Lakshana Bhakti, and then Upasana Bhakti, and then Jnana Bhakti. Is that correct? That's the order.
Yeah, that's what I had it here, to Karma Lakshana, Upasana, and then Jnana Lakshana Bhakti.
Okay.
Correct. Correct. So this is very important. Of course, that doesn't mean that, they are very clear-cut levels. We all are doing all of them in some form or the other. And it is necessary for us to recognize that, Karma Yoga is, of course, the starting point, where somebody, like all of us, of course, we are so busy in the world doing things, but to slowly recognize that the Karma Yoga or the actions that I'm doing in the world is done in such a way that everything is Ishwar Arpana Buddhi, that is the most important thing. And this Upasana Bhakti, like I said earlier, is where I am recognizing that as I'm doing the Karma Yoga also, that I'm taking the time, I'm taking time out, to sit and focus that mind on that form of the Lord. Whichever, and this is probably, this is the aspect of Bhakti Yoga that we all are familiar with, which is, praying to the Lord in the certain form, where I'm extolling the glories of the Lord, whether it's Vishnu Sahasranamam or Lalita Sahasranamam, all that is this aspect of Upasana Bhakti that we are doing when when I'm saying the prayers. And then the Jnana Bhakti, of course, is where is the aspect of the Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam aspect comes in, where up to this point, still, there is a distinction between me and the Lord. I still feel the Lord is separate from me, and I'm trying to, I'm praying to that Lord to give, praying to the Lord. So, but then in Jnana Yoga, Jnana Lakshana Bhakti is that aspect where now I'm starting to go even beyond that aspect to truly understand who is that Lord. What is the true, and that's the question that in chapter 11 too, when Arjuna is asking Krishna, right? He's asking, tell me really, what is your true form? And that's when 11th chapter is so loaded, where Krishna is showing him all the forms and also telling him that I'm also formless aspect. So all that is actually from the jnana, from studying of the scriptures, which is the Shabda Pramana we say, there are 3 forms. At some point, we should talk a little bit on those concepts as well, the Vedanta concepts of Shabda Pramana and Anumana Pramana, and, the various forms in which we get knowledge. So that aspect of it is the Jnana Yoga part of it. So with this understanding of Bhakti Yoga, let's move on to chapter 12. So what I've done so far is just to give you a sort of, first I want to give you an idea of what this chapter 12 is about, and then we move on to the actual shlokas itself. So starting itself, Arjuna is now asking the question, he's asking Krishna, so tell me, who is better prepared, or who is in your mind the best kind of a yogi? Is he the person who prays to the Saguna form of you or to the Nirguna form? So that's when Krishna then explains, the 2 forms, and he starts to this one. And then he goes on to explain about who are the Nirguna worshippers and how it is, really difficult to become a Nirguna Upasaka. And then the Saguna worshippers. And then he actually says, among the 2, I feel the Saguna worshipper is actually the best, And then he gives, of course, a lot of sadhanas on how, so he gives Dhyana Yoga, and then the Abhyasa Yoga, then the Japa Yoga, Kirtan. And in Upadeshasaram, actually, of Ramana Maharshi also, he gives a lot of these sadhanas in pretty much a similar kind of levels. And then after explaining all this for a Saguna Upasaka, then he gives what are the sadhana for a Nirguna Upasaka. So in verse 12, and interestingly, we just went through the chapter 11 where there were 55 verses, right? So Krishna must have thought, oh my God, I've really taxed all of you by giving such a big chapter. So this chapter is probably the smallest of the chapters in the entire Bhagavad Gita, because it has only about 20 shlokas. So ultimately, in the shlokas 13 to 20, he gives so many different qualities. He actually gives about 40 qualities, which each one is a gem by itself, And in fact, right now I'm actually teaching a course called Indian Knowledge System for MBA students. So we've actually taken experiential insights from Bhagavad Gita, leadership qualities and other concepts for MBA students. Okay. So see, that's the greatness about working in this university, is now I get to bring Bhagavad Gita to the 17-year-old, not 17, 20-year-olds. They're undergraduates, now starting their MBA. And we are trying to put 54 qualities from Bhagavad Gita. And each of these qualities, we're bringing that as a kind of a leadership quality. And I was actually trying to make a comparison of some of these qualities to how the modern leadership qualities are, And I had a tough time, actually. It was not very easy to map them one-on-one, there were a lot more qualities in Bhagavad Gita, which probably should be considered as leadership qualities, but they're not necessarily mentioned in the modern textbooks. Okay. So this is kind of, it gives you a summary of, not summary, I just wanted to give you what each of these 20 verses are all about. So any questions so far? Otherwise, we'll go to, we'll start the chapter with shloka number 1. So the chapter itself starts with, as I said, this is, the theme is Bhakti Yoga. And so even with the last shloka of chapter 11, where we saw Krishna saying, perform all your actions to me, become very devoted to me, make me as your supreme goal, all that, right? But then who is that me? And that is a part that, again, like I said, in the 11th chapter, he talks about himself as, avyaktam, which means unmanifest, imperishable, and, and then not visible to your senses. So, but then he also shows in the cosmic form of himself. So naturally, Arjuna wants to, he's a very, what should I say, competitive person. He wants to know which form of the two form is really more superior. Is it if I prayed to you in the unmanifest form, would that make me a more superior bhakta than somebody who is, praying to the saguna form? So all these are the kind of questions that Arjuna has in his mind. So he asks this question. So we'll chant this. Arjuna uvacha evam satata yuktaye bhaktastvam paryupasate ye chapyaksharam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. So in this manner, evam satata yuktaye, constantly united, those who are devotees, ye bhaktaha, tvam paryupasate, those devotees who worship you. So among those, so those who, and also who worship you in the form of aksharam, which is imperishable, avyaktam, unmanifest, tesham, among those, O Krishna, tell me who is the more superior one, who is the superior knower of yoga, tesham ke yoga vittamaha. So that is the question that Arjuna is asking. Evam satata yukta. Thus, both of them, both who worship him in the form or in the formless, both of them are steadfast. Okay. So just tell me, so the question is actually, if you look at it, it is kind of very thoughtfully worded, It's almost, I remember this one joke in Facebook only I saw this, there is this plane going, carrying, about 200 people or whatever. And then there's a fighter jet going fast. So the fighter jet, looks at the other plane and is saying, oh, you slowpoke, you're going so slow. Look at me, I'm going so fast and everything. So it's like that. Sometimes if you think about this question, Arjuna is asking, so tell me, really who is going to reach there first? Which one is a better one? So all these kind of things is where you will see that, in shlokas 2 on, from 2 onwards, Krishna is going to explain about really what is this Saguna Bhakti, the Nirguna Bhakti aspect of it. And so we'll continue that from next week, because from shloka 2, they're kind of pretty deep. The first one is just an introductory shloka that Arjuna is asking. But I wanted to make sure today we clearly understand this role of Bhakti Yoga. And so you'll see in 12th chapter, there's really not a whole lot of like analysis, discussion kind of thing. It's more of really one of the most beautiful chapters. It's almost in the form of a capsule, I would say, where each of these qualities are so beautiful. And so we will, it's kind of really just listening to it makes our mind actually so calm,
Hari Om.
Yeah.
The glimpse that you gave for this chapter 12, can you please show the second slide, please?
Second?
No, in 12. The summary you gave.
This one?
No, next, the starting of 12th, you gave what verse 1 is, what 2 was.
Yeah. Sure.
The second, next one. Thank you. That's what okay. Yeah. I got it. Thank
you. Sure. So we will, from a sadhana point of view, like we just talked about, our sadhanas are this karma yoga, upasana yoga, and jnana yoga. But in all this, the question is, what is our attitude in which we do these yogas? But in here, I think the more focus is going to be on that upasana kind of yoga. Yes, so even I like the way this particular book in which I'm referring to, which really brings how the stage 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, it's coming from a standpoint of because Arjuna's question was about Saguna worshipper versus Nirguna worshippers. Krishna, he uses, this is again, when we look into how the Indian knowledge systems, the approach they took in teaching, the pedagogy of teaching, Krishna is always, there's always a great expectation from him, in today's world, we may say that, oh, no, that's not right. We have to take baby steps and take the child. Of course, it all depends on every child, right? What the capability of a child is. Here, Krishna recognizes that Arjuna has asked a loaded question because obviously Arjuna has understood the two different types of people, the Nirguna worshipper versus Saguna worshipper. So Krishna is first addressing the more difficult or the challenging aspect of it first. And then in this one, he's again starting with, he could have started with Karma Yoga first, then Japa, Abhyas, and Dhyana, which is how you will find in some of the Prakarana Granthas, in Upadesha Saram, for example, they start with Japa Yoga and then move on. But here he's starting off with the highest, and then he's going down to lowest of the sadhanas. The mistake of the date. So we'll meet next week, 21st, that is. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu nikaraha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyat dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.